Hello everyone, this is Brother Birch. In this video I will be doing the test 3.1 practice. If you look in test 3, there's 3 practices right here. So I'm going to make a video for each one of these. And in this one we're going to do 3.1. Okay, so it says, Professor Bob is having a hard time keeping track of his grades. He belongs to the old school where everything is done on a chalkboard. Unfortunately, the cleaning staff comes by every night and cleans off the chalkboard in his office, and he loses his students' grades. Okay, um, Professor Bob's star student, Sue, decides to write a program to solve all of his grading problems. Her program prompts the professor for the number of grades for a given student, then it asks the professor for each grade for each student. Now, Sue knows that Professor Bob is a horrible typist. When he is finished with his grades, Sue's program asks Professor Bob to re-enter grades that are less than 0 or greater than 100. Finally, the program outputs the average score for the student. So, how many grades? Whatever number the user types in, that's how many prompts you're going to say, and how many pieces of data you're going to have to score. If there's anything that's invalid, it'll say, hey, please re-enter that. And then once all that's done, then we'll output our average grade. Okay, and then here's another example as well. Okay, so it also doesn't accept negative numbers. Okay, they are guaranteed to be less than 100 grades in the list. There's a tab before enter and grade, and please use good modularization, which means write functions. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and do this. It's not giving us a template to use. All right. So I just copied this over, and I just updated the header, and then I put in main here. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to throw that to that side. Leave that right there. All right. So first things first. Let's just dive into main. Okay, so main will be the main driver for the program. It will also list grades from the user, validate them, and display average. Okay, or I should say call the functions that do that. And call functions to list grades from the user. All right, so int main, let's go ahead and declare grades as an array. Okay. Let's make a constant up here. We already know that constant int max equals 100. We already know that there will not be more than 100 grades. Okay, so set that constant up there. All right, so we have int grades of max. So we just made an array for grades that has a length of 100. And then we'll say int num, which is what we're going to use when the user actually inputs their grades. And let's call a function here called getGradeList. We'll pass in grades, and we'll pass in num, and that will be equal to number grades. Okay, so got a couple of functions to write out here. So let's do that. I'm just going to copy this piece of code and paste it right here. All right, we'll go ahead and call this one getGradeList. All right, and let's make sure to update this as well. GetGradeList will prompt user for grades to fill array. All right, so now that we're in here, let's see. Let's make sure. Well, I'm just going to start a loop here. If we want to add some error validation later, we can. Int I equals 0, while I is less than num I plus plus. Oh, I forgot to declare num up there. Okay, so we passed in our grades and we passed in our num. Okay, so let's say int grades and int num. All right, so we have those. Okay, well, I is less than num, whatever the user passed in here, we'll write that function here in a sec. We're going to say cout tab, like it said in the instructions, enter grade I plus 1. Okay, I plus 1 because I is 0, and we're starting off at 1. Okay, so enter enter grade 1, enter grade 2, and so we'll just say I plus 1. We need a colon and a space, and that should be good there. And then we'll have a CIN for grades at index of I. Okay, so whatever they put in, whatever they type in, we'll go ahead and put that into our grades array. All right, and that should be pretty good for our get grades list function. Okay, now let's look at number grades. So for number grades, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this again, and I'll go ahead and stick it up top here. Okay, I'm going to take this stuff out of here. Okay, this is going to be int number grades, and we don't need any parameters there. Okay, and then for this one, we'll say number grades prompt user for the number of grades. Nice and simple. Okay, so I'll say int num cout, and it says how many grades, cin num, and then we will return num. Okay, one thing though, we have to make sure that we have a valid number. Okay, so in here, let's go ahead and say, up at the top, I'm going to include assert. Assert. Okay, so that we can make some assert statements in here. And then inside of number grades, let's go ahead and assert that num is less than max. Okay, so we know we don't have more than 100 grades. And num is greater than 0. So we actually have something to do with our code. Okay. All right. With that, I think number grades is good to go. And we have get grade list. So let's head back into main and let's see what else we need to do there. First off, at this point I could check my code, so I'm going to save it and I'm going to try to compile it. Okay, we have an error. Void get grade list int return statement with a value in returning void. Okay, so let's look at get grade list. It's probably because we don't have, yeah, right there. Okay, let's try it again. Good. All right. So let's keep on going with main. Let me scroll down here. So we got the grade list. We're going to loop through for each one. We're going to print them on here. Okay, so pretty sure up to this point we've prompted for how many grades. We have them each stored inside of our grades array. And we have our grade we just call it get grades list there. But we pass in grades, and so grades will update our grades array. Okay, now after I've done that, I'm going to validate our grade list. Okay, I'll go ahead and pass in grades and our number of grades as well. And we'll just call this function called validate grade list. Okay, and we'll make sure that this function is working as intended. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this guy. Oops. And paste. All right. So let me take some of this stuff out. For this one, I'll say void validate grade list. We're passing in our grades again and the number of grades. Okay, so we have that, and then over here, let's go ahead and say validate grade list, look for invalid grades, and reprompt if necessary. Okay. All right. So we have this set up. Let's go ahead and dive in here. Let's say for int I equals 0, I is less than num, I plus plus. Okay, if grades at index of I is greater than 100, or grades at index of I is less than 0. Okay, these are things we don't want. Apparently no extra credit in this class. Okay, cout tab grade, whoops. So it said grade 2 is not valid, so grade I plus 1 is not valid. Please re-enter grade. Okay, let's go ahead and put this down on a new line. Please re-enter grade. And then I plus 1. And then a colon space. Semicolon. Alright. Alright. Grade 1 is not valid. Please re-enter grade 1. Okay, grade 1. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Then we have a semicolon to end that cout statement. And then I'll just say cin, and we'll replace that value in the array with whatever they put in. Okay, hopefully with a valid value. Okay, and that should be good there. Okay, so let's go back into main real quick. So we get the grade list, we validate the grades, make sure that none of them are out of our range. Okay, and then let me actually add some comments here. So fill the grades array, validate all grades between -1 and 101. Well, that's confusing. Let me say from must be from 0 to 100. Okay, so we validate grades, and then we'll display the average. Display average. Cout the average grade is, let's go ahead and call a function called average, and we'll pass in grades and num and add a % and a line break. Okay, so we have that. Now the last thing we have to do is make our average function here. So I'm just going to copy this time and paste. Okay, average will compute the average of our grades array. Alright, so average is going to return an integer for us. So int average, int grades is being passed in, and int num. Alright, so I'm going to say int sum equals 0 for int I equals 0, I is less than num, I plus plus, loop through that again, and for every time we loop through, we're just going to add everything to our sum. So I'll say add the grade at index of I. Okay, and then after our loop, we'll go ahead and return sum divided by num. Okay, so I think we should be good to go there. We fill the grades array, we validate the grade list, and then we'll display the average. Okay, so let's run this and see how it goes. Try to compile it. Good. A.out. How many grades? Let's say 5 grades. We have 50%, 60, 70, 80, 90, and that was 5 grades. So the average grade is 70. So that math looks like it was right. And it looks pretty good. Okay, so for my next test, I'm actually just going to run test bed. CS124, practice 31, and I called this test 3 practice 1.cpp. Okay, Awesome. So run our style checker, because if you forgot, test 3, practice 1, style checker is part of your grade here. Okay. We do have one error, 977, 78. Looks like we forgot a line space after a function and before the comment block of another function. So let's go into that. And there it is. Okay, there we go. So that is my walkthrough of this practice test 3.1. Hope that it was helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know.